let's get started. My name is Ian Price. I am the peer team lead and innovation strategist at Technology for Living, and I'm so happy to partner up with FCIBC today to put on this virtual event. We are going to be talking about the Lotus Ring, and I'm really happy to introduce Dhaval Patel, who is an engineer, a keynote speaker, and I love this, an individual of extraordinary ability. Wow. Has
It was
accredited.
not a title I came up with, I promise. It's actually a US government thing.
Yes,
Wow. Story.
I love it. Well, somebody with over 37 patents in sensing and haptics, I think that you're the perfect person to speak with us today and to share a little bit more information about Lotus and the great work you're doing. So thank you, Patel, or Mr. Patel, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to Wayne's questions.
Excellent.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you. Like I said, everyone's welcome to California, although this is the colder part. The nicer part is where it sounds like Robin, you were off to.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet everyone. My name's Dhaval, that's how it's pronounced. Previously managed a division at Apple for iPhone Watch and Airpods. I'm a hardware engineer by training and happy to share more about Lotus. Ian, should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the story really starts with me. I was born with twisted knees. And over the years, I've been on and off crutches myself a lot. One night, a few years ago, I got into bed, having left some lights on. But I was too tired to get out of bed, hop onto my crutches, hobble 10 feet, turn off the light, hobble back 10 feet, and get back into bed. So I slept with the lights on the entire night and woke up in the morning, not having slept very well, thinking, if someone like me, an engineer managing a division at Apple, with expertise in wall electronics because I've also worked at Lutron and 37 patents, if someone like me doesn't even have smart home technology, who the hell does? And it turned out 91% of US homes were built before smart homes even existed, with no easy way to upgrade. Even getting an Alexa means rewiring every wall switch to connect to the internet to be able to talk to Alexa, then putting a speaker in every room to control the switches you just rewired, and pairing every switch one by one through another app. And just that first step is 11 hours for $2,000. And that's best case if you own that home. If you rent an apartment, there's no solution. Now, this affects everyone, but it disproportionately affected people like me, about 27 million people with limited mobility. We're talking veteran soldiers, older adults, and people with disabilities who can end up spending up to an extra 4 hours at home on self-care every day. So at Lotus, we created this wearable ring, the one I'm wearing, that controls objects at home by pointing. There's no apps, no rewiring, and most importantly, no internet. Now, the way this works, step one, you put on the ring. That eliminates needing speakers in every room. Step two, snap on a switch. Magnets eliminate rewiring. And step three, point and click. Infrared, like a television, eliminates the need for internet, apps, and smartphones. Now, when we launch in production, we're about 9 months from launch, we're thinking a pack would have 1 ring and 3 switch covers. And with that, you can control anything that a wall switch controls. So of course, lights are a common example, but you can also control fans. You can also control appliances like a window unit AC. And because we're using infrared, we can also control televisions. And for televisions, there are no extra components needed. It turns out this is actually a $335 billion problem that's been over 80% unaddressed even after a decade because of the issues I mentioned earlier. With Lotus, basically you get to go from home to smart home in seconds, essentially. And more importantly, you can take it with you wherever you go, whether that's moving apartments or traveling for vacation. And previously, before we sort of did accelerator programs, before when we were thinking direct to consumer, 50 user interviews turned into 500 user signups just through word of mouth. Now, in this year, in the past 6 months, we've started working with organizations And we ended up getting over 14 pilot requests in just 30 days, including with the US Department of Veterans Affairs and the state of New York. And we're working with both of them and all of these other organizations. We're working with disability organizations at a city level and also with senior living. Now, as much as I'm the one talking here, this has been an entire team effort, a team of engineers and clinicians, formerly from all of these places, Apple, Amazon, BlackBerry, Walmart Health, even a TEDx disability speaker. Our vision long-term is to build this future where there will be a universe of ring controllable objects, and caregivers will be able to subscribe to device data, giving them peace of mind. Ultimately, so that any person, younger or older, disabled or not disabled, renter or homeowner, can stay at home with autonomy and dignity, because dignity cannot wait for better times. That's Lotus. Okay, so that's sort of a little bit of a nutshell. I have working prototypes with me. So just to show you again how it works. Step one, you just put this ring on. There's a single button up here. Try and point it to the camera. There's just one button. And putting on the ring once eliminates the need to have a smart speaker in every room of the house, right? Because the ring goes with you wherever you go. So you don't need to put a smart speaker everywhere. This is especially important for lots of people who are not comfortable putting speakers in private rooms, like bedrooms and bathrooms because of privacy. So that's step one. Step two, for any existing wall switch, and this works for the other type of switch too, and I have another prototype here, but just as an example, for any existing wall switch, I'm showing one type, you can attach this switch cover magnetically. So there's no rewiring. It can go on either way. Doesn't matter. And you can also entirely use the front surface. So the front button, the whole surface is a button. Right, so I'll put it against me so you can see. We attach this little bulb just to, as an example, pretend those are your lights in the ceiling or whatever else can. So you can use it manually as well. So that's step two, which is you just snap it on, and magnets eliminate the need for rewiring, right? And step three, all you do is point and click. And infrared eliminates the need for apps, smartphones, and internet. And you'll see here, this little black strip, that's where the infrared comes out. So you hold it like this, almost like you're giving a thumbs up, and you just point and click. Now, I will say we're very, very early stage company. In fact, to put this in perspective, I don't even have a salary yet. We just finished fundraising a few months ago. So the team now has a salary, but I'm still not drawing a paycheck. Right now, these are just the features we've implemented as of now. Later, we wanted to sort of have a combination of inclusive design and universal design. And so some of the things that are coming down the road, right now, our big focus is point and click, which helps a lot of people a lot of the time. Low physical effort, low cognitive effort. That's my area of expertise. I'm an expert in UI interface, human interface. And so for most people, most of the time, point and click. Now, let's say you couldn't do that for some reason. So let's say, example, arthritis. You can't bend your finger and point the button, which is low physical and low cognitive effort. So if you can't do fine motor control, we're also going to allow gross motor control. So you'll be able to use gestures to control the same exact objects. But let's push it further. Let's say you can't even do that. You've had a stroke or you're a quad, you can't move your arm at all. Then we will also allow voice to control the same objects. And the additional benefit of voice is that it does not have to be line of sight. So you can also control things in another room. All of this is still completely offline and there's no pairing. Okay, I'll pause there. I threw a lot of information. This is a good time where we can just sort of have an informal conversation. Any questions that I can help answer?
Yeah, I'm really curious. Looking down the road, how would you control a device in another room not using an internet connection?
Yeah, so without getting into too much technical detail, basically the idea is you can use the first two modalities are line of sight.
Yes,
Third would be voice, which does not have to be line of sight. And if you're interested in the tech, it's using Bluetooth.
I
So
see.
it
Okay,
doesn't.
makes sense. Marty?
Like, does the switch still work regularly? Like,
Yeah.
you know, your switch behind it?
Yeah. So this is basically, it's a battery controlled electromagnet. So it's actually physically moving the switch behind. So this switch still works, as you can tell. I'm also manually using it. And you can also manually click it here. So here, I'll just move it against me so you can see I'm pressing the button here. And this was, in fact, one of the requests during one of our pilots. Initially, in fact, this was the old prototype. And you can tell there's no button on the front. And one of the initial pieces of feedback we got, we follow human-centered design. So the very first piece of feedback we got was, can you allow manual control as well for other family members who live in the same home that may not have the ring? So absolutely.
And like same with the traditional little switch.
Yep, exactly. And so here's one. This is a small switch. This is a working prototype. And so you can manually use it as well. And same with the ring. So yes.
I just thought of it something as you were talking. So what runs the unit itself and in a sense of battery, and how do we change it?
Yeah, great question. So both of them are rechargeable batteries. And so there's just, on this side, it's a battery controlled motor effectively. And this is just a battery, rechargeable batteries. This is pretty simple. You just recharge it with a USB-C. And so just a regular, any USB charger will work. The ring is a little different. We would supply a USB charger that you could drop the ring on. But the nice thing is, unlike having to charge, unlike an Apple Watch, which has to be charged every day, or an Oura Ring that you have to charge every 3 days, these you only have to charge once in 90 days. Because it only takes power for the 50 milliseconds that you push the button. The rest of the time, it doesn't take any power. So you only need to charge it once in 3 months. We think we can make it 4 months, but that's where we're at today.
Even the wall switch portion, not just the ring.
Correct.
Wow.
Both in the switch cover, you only need to charge once in 90 days.
Does the ring have to be worn?
No, you can actually click it either way. The main reason we actually came up with this was, so I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. I originally thought this was a stupid idea. I was convinced, in fact, that this was a stupid idea because everyone is moving sort of towards the Internet of Things. I'm moving the opposite direction. I really just made this to solve my own problem. And so initially, for the first 9 months, I just did interviews with people with disabilities, just to convince myself that this was an okay idea. And a couple of things came out of those interviews. One, folks mentioned that we don't want something on the wrist because it needs 2 hands. Anything on the wrist requires 2 hands to use. Yeah. And you have to look at the device at the same time. Not either or, both conditions have to be true. So if one of your hands is busy, you can't use it, even if you look at it. Or if your hands are free, but you're looking somewhere else, like you're paying attention to a child or something, and you can't use it. So that was problem number 1. Problem 2, wrist-based devices, people wouldn't wear to bed at night, a lot of them. Either because they had to shake it off out of habit or to charge it, or, and this is real quote, it gets caught in my significant other's hair. Real, again, these are real interviews. Very, very long, 9 hours long over 3 days, very long interviews. And so one of the reasons to not do that was one where they said, don't make a watch. The other big reason was the common use case was at night, whether either you have to turn off the wall switch and then somehow get into bed in the dark, which was my problem, or if you're in the dark and you wake up at night and want to go to the restroom, very true for older adults especially, then you have to find the light switch in the dark. And people didn't wear. So the only thing they wore to bed were their wedding rings. In fact, some of our users hadn't taken them off in 12 years. And so the one big request we kept getting is, can you make something that you can use with one hand without having to look at the device, and we can wear it to bed, keep in bed at night. And so hence the ring form factor. We haven't ruled out other possibilities, but we're a very small team. And so right now we've started with them.
The fitting of the ring, how do you size it?
Yeah, we actually have, here's an example. So instead of taking mine off. So you can tell we have 3 different sizes. It's hard to tell. So right now we have 3 different sizes. By the time we get to production, we're hoping for 5. And so 3 different sizes and different colors. So we have a silver, a gray, and a black. The dark gray one is the most popular. So yeah, right now we have different sizes.
Okay, and then the other thing is like privacy. I'm not too sure about privacy of the I forget what you call them, the devices that you put in different rooms.
Yeah, the smart speakers.
Smart speakers isn't compared to this. Like I don't have any because I don't trust them.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me they're already picking up stuff because how do they target you with these commercials all the time?
Right.
And the other thing is like for these devices, are they any more private or less or?
Yeah, it's a great question. And by the way, this was the same concern that lots of people had, including people who even have an Alexa already. In fact, the statistics are about 52 to 54% of people that have a smart home speaker already choose not to put them in private rooms for exactly your concern, because you don't want something listening all the time in a bedroom or a bathroom. This is as private as it gets. It's completely offline. It's not even connected to the internet. So it's completely offline. Your data doesn't go anywhere. There is no data, in fact. And because it's using infrared, no one can secretly control your home because infrared doesn't penetrate walls. So you can't be outside a home and control it.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. So one of my questions was, and thank you, Teresa, sizing, because I'm a size 11 or 13, depending on where you go. But it's line of sight, so it has to have a clear line of sight to where you push it, right?
Yes and no. What we found, we've done sort of 3 pilots so far, 2 done, third one's ongoing. By the way, if anyone on this call is somewhere in the Bay Area, more than happy to give prototypes. They're in people's homes right now, again, the 3rd iteration. I say generally yes, line of sight, but infrared will sort of bend and turn corners. In fact, a lot of people actually use that for bathrooms and things. If you have a mirror, you can bounce it, you can play tricks. But generally speaking, yes, you generally need line of sight.
Well, it's not a parallax laser where it's dispersing a bit rather than a laser.
Correct. It is absolutely not dispersing. In fact, one of the reasons you cannot use your TV remote, I draw a lot of parallels with a TV remote, sort of like a TV remote thing on your finger. It turns out you couldn't use your TV remote. In fact, we tried. We originally were not going to make rings because making a ring is very hard. Making a circular sort of thing is very, very hard. It turns out TV remotes just blast infrared because they're only expecting you to have one TV in that room. Because of that, even if you had, you have many switches and plug-in appliances, etc. in a room, if you try using a TV remote, everything turns on because TV remotes just blast IR. So they bounce around in the same room, turning everything on. One of the hard parts about engineering this was we had to make it so that it was strong enough that you got a lot of range. So you can it works up to 30 feet. In fact, in our test, it's about 33, 36 feet. So in a really large hall, even diagonally, it'll work. But it's not so strong that in a small room, like a bedroom, it'll bounce around, causing false reflections and false triggers. So yeah.
Okay, now the other question I have is that I don't know what the amount of pressure is that's needed, but with my rings, they turn, they twist.
Yeah.
So when I'm wheeling in my wheelchair, I'm clicking my rings against my push rings.
Right.
So I'm wondering as I'm wheeling through my room, am I going to get a strobe light show as I go, as I'm tapping my wheel and my lights are on and off?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of the things we're working on in this iteration. And so we've tried to find the right balance where it's not so low that you get false triggers all the time, but it's not so high that people with low finger dexterity can't use it. And so right now we set the threshold in the first prototype, we set to about 125 grams. And we still got feedback that it was a little too hard. And so we've reduced it to 100 grams. We haven't had any false triggers yet. In fact, I wear these to bed all the time. And even while I'm rolling around in bed, nothing's happened. The other thing is, even if you triggered it, you would have to be pointing to something. And so if you weren't pointing to anything, it wouldn't, you could point it to the ceiling, nothing would happen. So it's sort of a few different things have to happen for a false trigger to happen. But again, I don't want to say it's perfect. We're still kind of fine tuning that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
Okay, now from the chat, first question is, does it work if the battery is dead?
No, it does work. It needs a power source, so it doesn't work with the battery. I will say though, for the switch, obviously, you could just take it off and still manually control to use it. But yeah, the devices themselves, they do need power.
Next question is, can it charge itself in the future, like a watch, like a charging watch?
Yeah, it's funny. Wow, these are some really advanced questions. Yes, actually, in our patents, we have filed for 2 other ways for charging. I'll share this. It's really farther on our roadmap. One is if anyone's ever used a sort of automatic watch, sort of as you go about moving in your day, it sort of, rewinds the mechanism. It's sort of similar. We use a different transducer. So that is the plan. This version does not do that because that is quite a bit complicated. The other version we're planning on making actually, is a smaller version of the ring, but one you can put on in addition, and it would magnetically attach, and the whole thing is a battery. In other words, if anyone here is, well, hopefully everyone is old enough to remember, the old camcorders that you would get where you'd like tape your child's birthday party, and they would ship you two batteries, right? One was always charging, one you could attach, and if you ran out of juice, you would just swap them. That's the plan with the rings, where you could sort of put a second concentric ring and it would magnetically attach. So you never have to take off your primary ring. It always stays on you all the time. In fact, part of the reason to make it waterproof is because we want to encourage people to have it all the time. That's why the goal is to make it waterproof and also not have to charge it every so often, hence the 90 days. So the idea is you should be able to just keep it on and forget about it.
Nice. Next question, is it using AA batteries and is it easy to charge? I believe you've touched upon this, but the ring, it charges on a base, correct?
Yes, the ring uses special batteries. They're not sort of standard AA's. That's the only way you can make it this small. And so it will come with a charger, but you'll only need to use it once in 90 days. The switch cover, it actually has a AA-like battery, but it's rechargeable. And so it's based inside. All you have to do is plug in a USB-C here on the bottom. But again, you only need to charge once in 90 days.
Hey, I love this question. Would a multi-tool like a Flipper Zero work for the infrared?
I'm sorry, I actually am not familiar with a multi-tool or Flipper Zero. I don't know if this is I didn't grow up here reason or something else, but I'm not familiar with this.
I only know it from hacking websites, but it's a tool that you can program in different IR and RF frequencies.
Oh, I see. Well, okay, wow, that's really advanced. So yes, in theory, our big vision is to actually allow people to make whatever they want, which is why we're not making a proprietary infrared. We're using the same open source infrared that exists today. And so the idea is ultimately anyone can make anything. So think of it as a hardware app store where we will publish open source specifications. People can make anything they want. So whether that's a multi-tool or anything else, we of course will make a few specific devices that everyone can use all the time. But yeah, it's not closed source. And so anyone should be able to, in theory, use it. There's nothing preventing anyone.
Okay, next one. How about designing it as a necklace instead of a ring?
Yeah, it is. It's something we're considering. There have been some trade-offs with sort of a necklace version. So we collected feedback from different demographics of people. Some folks have suggested it as an alternative. However, there are other folks that are not big fans because it's sort of a dignity thing. I don't know if anyone's familiar with sort of the life alert equivalent. It's a PERS device, personal emergency response. And a lot of, and if you're in a sort of senior living facility, a lot of people get that, but they choose not to wear it because it's sort of a dignity thing where you don't want to be, this is the whole person first versus identity first nomenclature. You don't necessarily want to be defined by your assistive tech. And so we got a lot of feedback initially saying, don't make it that way. Now, all in all considered, we're going to probably end up with a spectrum of different form factors just so anyone with any kind of disability can use it. But at the moment, we haven't created another one, but we haven't ruled it out either. That's why we started with a ring, I guess, is my long answer.
Thank you. With pulse triggers, can it be set looser or tighter, like door springs, with a twist in the ring?
Yeah, not at the moment, not with the current prototype. We're just trying to have enough people try it out where we sort of set it in stone, and it's sort of, that's the same. The only reason to do it that way is because then we can get economies of scale. So if all the hardware is the same, then we can build it in bulk and helps reduce the pricing for every person. The whole idea is we're trying to make the price point so that it's truly accessible in every way possible, including economically. And so right now it can't. In the future, we have considered, I'll give you one example. One of the reasons to actually not have a physical button and to make it pressure sensitive, in which case you can make it, everyone can adjust their own threshold. Right now, you can only do things that are on and off, right? You push the button, it only does one of two states. But gradually, we want to give analog control. So for instance, the same button will have a touch sensor on it. Instead of just turning on and off your TV, you can turn on and off your TV, change channel, and increase, decrease volume. All in that one. And we don't want to add more than that because then it gets too confusing. So we're intentionally limiting it to just that. And when we add that, then we can do things like this, where every person can set their own threshold. Again, at the moment, right now, the idea is to keep the prototype simple so we can get it to market as quickly as possible. But it's a great question.
Next question. Can you add controllable plugs as well, please? So it can be, or so it can control a table fan or reboot a computer.
That is a great question. We've finished building 3 this week of exactly that. We have just 3, and so we're testing them in-house, but it's exactly that, which is you can plug in anything you want, anything that plugs into the wall, lights, fans, AC unit, coffee maker. Maybe as a holistic, so short answer is yes, we're already working on it. As an overarching answer, our big focus is to focus on just those objects that everyone has to interact with every day, as opposed to sort of random IoTs, Internet of Things. So everyone to do, your basic daily activities, you have to have a light source, right? In the morning, it's blinds. In the evening, it's electric lights, but you need some light. You have to open and close doors. And then whichever space in your home you're in, you have to control some object. Most commonly requested is television, closely followed by environmental controls like fans and window unit ACs. So those are the objects we're focused on. So today, you can control anything that a wall switch controls, so lights, fans, appliances. Right now, we're already working on plug-in appliances, and then later is drapes, followed by doors. Those are the specific objects we're focused on. After that, we just want to make it available so that anyone can make any kind of device they feel like. So a common example is garage door opener. You can sort of, if you're an engineer and you want to make your own little version that might help them, think of it as a hardware app store. There are lots of people's ideas might help everybody. And so why not sort of connect everyone? Why not enable network effects?
Nice. I see Teresa has her hand up.
What happens if is it possible there would be any interference in using a power assist wheelchair?
No, we've actually already given it to a lot of people, and there doesn't seem to be, mainly because it's sort of like if unless your wheelchair was already interfering with your television, there's no difference because we're literally using the same wavelengths, actually 950 nanometers. So it's the same. It's like a television remote. It doesn't interfere with anything else, and nothing else interferes with it. Sort of very friendly.
Great. Another question from the chat. How long is the life of the batteries? So not battery life, but how many years do these batteries last?
Yeah.
Can we buy this kind of battery outside, and how much do they cost?
Right now, we're trying to quantify it. It seems to be longer than 5 years. Again, it's a little complicated because it depends on how many times you use it every day, etc. But right now, our numbers show that it would be past 5 years. We think maybe closer to 7. We're still working out some of those details. In theory, you could open up the device and sort of unplug an old battery. You'd need a rechargeable and plug in a new battery. You can only do that for the switch cover. This is big enough that you could do that. The ring is quite small, and so you probably wouldn't be able to do that. But again, we're talking very, very long battery life. Again, you're using this maybe tens of times every day. Battery cycles are rated in tens of thousands of cycles. So we're talking many, many, many years.
Okay, and then our comment from the chat, I think it's quite an elegant design. I will be looking forward to the version for people with less finger dexterity.
Yeah, actually, on that front, we're already trying to make it intentionally that way. So, for instance, a common piece of feedback we get now is, okay, I can't use it with my thumb, even this prototype where we haven't enabled gesture control just yet. And so, one of the things we've been testing with, in here, I'm looking for a prototype here that I can show that on. We've been actually trying to find it here. There we go. And so we've been attaching these little nubs, which help concentrate the force. And with that, even with this prototype, we're actually giving to users that can't sort of use their opposable thumb. And so they use their other hand or they use it against their knee. And they're in people's homes right now. And so that's part of the reason that we made it so that it's only 100 grams, because then you can kind of push against really anything and you're okay.
Wayne, I see you have a list of questions.
I'm gonna hold it to one for now. You guys have been asking such good questions that my list is kind of dwindled a bit. But
Wayne, I hope I can answer it. Is my only.
no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. In kind of researching just through your website beforehand, I was a little concerned that it was just a ring and a light switch, and I kind of get it now that you're explaining it. In your presentation, you did mention working with other smart devices. But as you're explaining, it almost sounds like you're going to be working with other devices that you develop. So is the plan to work with devices that you guys will be developing in-house with a kit that you could make like a DIY kit, or would we be able to operate things like other companies' smart home devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe the best way to describe it is short term, because we're a very small team, it's sort of we're making it so that you can at least control the devices that we create. Longer term, we're definitely making it so that you know, if you've already installed some Amazon or Alexa things in your home, you'll still be able to control those. All of that I count in phase 2 or maybe 3, where we will have a gateway. In other words, there will be a way for the people who choose to have it for these devices to talk to the internet. Once it does that, then you can have it connect through an API to whatever whichever device you wanted to control. Also, in other platforms, it's just we didn't want to do that now. And so sort of I think of it as phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1, we want to provide a kit so that, there's an ecosystem of devices where 1 ring and 3 switch covers. That way you can put 1 in every room and, automatically you have a smart home. And you can take it with you when you go to a hotel or an Airbnb. Phase 2, we want to enable APIs so anybody can make their own version. Maybe you're making your own garage door version. Phase 3, we also provide a gateway. Specifically the charging station, we would provide a version that can connect to the internet. And then you can sort of connect it to your existing smart home devices if you so choose. So that's the phase 1, 2, and 3.
Harry?
I have 2 questions for you. Okay, the first question is just what the material is. And the reason why I'm asking this is just for safety reasons. If you were to like break your finger, how easy is it to get cut off?
It's very, very easy. So right now, part of the reason was we wanted to make sure it was accessible and light. And so right now it's brushed aluminum. So it's very, very light. In fact, the most common feedback I get is, oh my God, this is unexpectedly light. But yeah, so this is all brushed aluminum. We're debating stainless steel as well. It would still be, we're still talking very, very few grams. I think right now it's 60 or 80 grams. So it's very, very light. We don't think we want to make it heavier. Some of the other rings, you can get sort of titanium and some really fancy things. We're trying to keep the cost down so it's accessible to everybody, but more specifically, we want to keep it light. So yeah, in theory, you could cut it.
That's good. And my other question is kind of a bit of a micro question, I guess, but thinking of the future and like opening doors, do you think it might be able to have the ability to be able to do kind of 2 things at once? So like unlock the door and open it?
This is a great group. They're very, very sort of advanced roadmap questions. That's exactly right. In fact, we're not trying to focus on the main door, not sort of your front door, the whole locking thing. We're trying to make it so that you have a very low cost solution for all the other doors in your house, like using the bathroom all the time or your bedroom door. And so for exactly that reason, we want to do drapes first because it's, in terms of engineering, it's easier. And then for doors, it's a 2-part engineering problem. One, you have to unlatch the door, and second, you have to move it at the hinge. And so we have some solutions that we're working on. But yeah, that's exactly why it is third, even in the devices that we're working on. But that's very much the goal, which is right now it's sort of this very, very heavy, you have to kind of install this really heavy thing, and it's usually about 10 grand. And so we want to make it so it's in the $100 range, very, very cheap. Great question. I feel like we should just include this group in our engineering team.
You should.
Really, we would love to. Sorry. Thank you, Terry, for the question.
And just back to the battery question, and just based on what you were saying. So every 5 years, maybe 7-ish, we are to repurchase the item because, yeah, okay, you're nodding.
In
Yeah.
theory, we haven't worked out the numbers yet, so I don't know whether it's 5 or 7 or 10. I don't want to say past 10 because a lot of other things might start to fail. If you buy electronic components, usually most of them are rated for 5 to 10 year battery. I mean, just life in general. But yeah, so I guess the answer is more TBD right now. But yeah, in theory, find another ring. Maybe we're debating now whether to have some kind of refurbishment program. So maybe you swap in your old device for a new one. TBD, we really don't know, quite early.
Right, like a customer service thing. They bought your equipment once already, then.
Yeah, why buy it again?
But
yeah.
then who proves it that you didn't just inherit it versus, buy it? And all these other issues that go along with warranty items. So
yeah, it's a completely fair question. Again, because we're such an early stage startup, we're trying to figure out just a way to finish building and get it out. But yeah, these are all questions that we're trying to figure out answers to. We want to make sure that there is a way to swap, and maybe if you're choosing to upgrade and you're already a customer, then you don't have to pay the full price, things of that nature. Our big focus, my personal big mission in life, has anyone here seen Hamilton? Sorry, this would sound like a digression. Hamilton, the musical? Okay, really great, by the way, I would recommend it. There's this quote in Hamilton, which is, "What is legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see." And one of the reasons I left Apple is, I've been there for about 8.5 years. I remember thinking after this, I watched Hamilton and had this quote and sort of stuck in my head. 30 years from now, I don't think I'll be telling my grandkids, "Hey, your granddad added the 8th camera on the iPhone." Interesting, but I'm not entirely certain how meaningful. And so sort of our big mission statement is to build tech that's usable by anyone, but by optimizing for disability first. Because by doing that, you help everyone anyway. And so the reason I bring this up is everything to do with pricing, cost. We really want to make sure that it's accessible to third world countries as well. And so hence, it's a great question. We're trying to figure out the answer to it too.
Sorry, I might have missed this earlier. You mentioned there was like a little nubby thing that you could put on it.
Yeah, we're trying to make other versions. So right now, the default version of the ring is completely flat, right? There's a button, you can feel the button, but we're trying to add other textures or ways to concentrate the force if you have even lower finger dexterity.
Right.
We're trying to make it so that it's inclusive for every different person while still being universal in design, so it's scalable, right? That way the cost, you get the benefits of scale, economies of scale, but while still every person's slightly different in terms of finger dexterity. So we're playing around with some of that.
Cool. Scott mentioned how maybe the ring would turn on your finger. Well, I know that there's some rings they made with a little nub inside, so that helps prevent it from turning. So that might be something that you could put on the inside that would help prevent it from turning.
Yeah, what we find is there's no perfect answer to this, of course. It's a little balance of engineering and art. What we find is a lot of people that we've interviewed, they find it relaxing. Like I find, when I'm waiting in the queue somewhere or something, I'll futz around with it. What we're trying to do is add texture, sort of like your keyboard, where we're adding texture to certain parts. So even without looking at it, like let's say at night, which way the ring is rotated because you know where the button is and you know where the IR window is. We call this the IR window, infrared window. And so you can kind of feel it and say, okay, yeah, I know where it's now, and you can just point and click, which is what I do now. Again, the intent is more than just making it user-friendly, which it becomes. It genuinely has value in situations where you can't see, and thereby also helps being helpful for people with very low vision. And so there are other features that I won't mention here, but we're also trying to make sure that other people with other kinds of disabilities can also end up using it. So notice that, like no vision, for instance, if you're blind, we're talking in our roadmap about things with haptic feedback. So it becomes the opposite of a cane, where you can sort of use it to hone, because people with low vision today, they sort of do step counting in their home. It causes a lot of problems there. Anyway, I'm digressing. Thank you. Wonderful question.
Question from the chat. Does it use the same wave as a TV remote control?
Yes, that's an easy one. Yes, it is. In fact, we intentionally chose to be that. A, to make sure it's open source, therefore helping more people and more accessible. B, so you can actually also control your television. So yes.
Next question. Can we slip it over our wheelchair joystick to use it?
I'm not entirely certain I understand the premise. Can we slip it over our wheelchair joystick to use it? Do you mean like sort of run it over? I don't fully follow.
I think
Okay,
people
so
don't want to wear
say-
it. Yeah, sorry, Vivian, go ahead.
That's okay. So say you don't have the dexterity to wear it. Could you put it on your, we have joysticks and they come in different
Oh, yeah, yeah.
shapes.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could put it there and then maybe move it with our palm.
Absolutely.
rather than our
There
fingers.
is no actual requirement that it has to be worn. It's not like there's a sensor on there that says, hey, is this on the human body? And only that, like I can, here, I'll show you. Like I'm not even wearing it right now. I can still use it. There's no, there's nothing. You can, part of the reason intentionally for that was if you have gloves on your hand, like, a lot of wheelchair users will actually have gloves on their hand while they're rolling. And so we wanted to make sure that unlike an Apple Watch and some other things, even if you had gloves on, you should be able to use it. So yeah, you can attach it to anything you want. You could put it on a necklace and sort of use it from there too. So there's nothing preventing it.
And I guess that sort of solves the problem of a necklace because
Yeah.
like any other ring, you can just slip a chain on it and hang it on a chain.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to, ultimately, we want to make it, this is sort of an advanced version. We want to make it so it's truly accessorized. And so you can sort of adjust it and morph it in ways you want. But of course, we have to start somewhere. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, next thing is right now, can it turn on any light in the home? So I think as long as it has the second component, the magnetic component, then yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
You
how
can,
do you,
in fact, you can even move it. So what we find often, and one of the big benefits is people don't always know exactly where they want it. And so people will try it in a few spots and then say, oh, you know what? Instead of the hallway, I want it on that kitchen light, or I want it on the bathroom door. And the nice thing is you can keep messing around with it until you get it to a spot where you're like, oh yeah, I use it mostly there. You can't do that with existing smart home because you have to rewire it. And then once you've done that, you're not going to move it. So.
next question, how do you program it to be a specific TV remote?
Great question. We are trying to figure out sort of what are some common televisions and sort of use that as a default. And then if you have some other television, then we will have some advanced features available potentially in an app, but we're trying to change it so that, there's definitely no default need for the phone. But if you wanted to make some advanced things, like if you want to, I don't know, if you want to change the infrared beam strength or which TV it controls, then you'll be able to if you want. So just like anything else, advanced features could be in the app, but default, you don't need any of it.
One quick one and then one I hope might make you think a little bit. The first one, so you've showed the paddle switch, light switch. Do you have one for like a lever light switch as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, my other question then is, being that it's infrared and it is going to spread a little bit, I'm assuming if you have two light switches side by side, you won't be able to control them both. And in the future, is there going to be, once you start adding smart plugs and light switches around the room, is there going to be a certain distance between them that it's going to actually function properly?
It's a great question. And so, yes, today we have, we've intentionally made the width of this device so that even if you had sort of, it's called a multi-gang panel. If you had 3 switches, 4 or 5, you can put it on any one, but you won't be able to control all 5 simultaneously. So that is true. In the future, there are other ways we can do that. So we can make multi-gang versions, etc. But again, initially, we're trying to start off here. The answer to your second question, though, that's much easier, which is we've intentionally made it so that as long as you're roughly aiming within a foot, like roughly 12 inches of this thing, it's going to trigger this and nothing else. In fact, it's intentionally made narrow enough where the ring is pretty narrow, but the receiver is pretty wide. And so you can control the receiver from almost any angle. So right now it's plus minus 150 degrees. Plus
But does that that 1 foot radius, does that depend on how far away you are?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, so when I say 1 foot, it absolutely. So I keep quoting sort of 30-foot distances.
Okay.
So closer, it can be even tighter. But yeah,
Okay.
the idea is you could have a wall switch, a TV, and a plug-in lamp, and you're still not going to accidentally trigger anything. In fact, that's how it is.
Okay, 2 more questions in the chat. Do you need to buy 2 devices? I'm assuming they mean 2 rings to turn on 2 light switches.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll answer both ways. If you're trying to control 2 wall switches, then yes, in theory, and if unless you want to keep moving them between the 2 wall switches, yes, you would need to have 2 wall switches, 2 switch covers, as we're calling them. You don't need 2 rings, but I'll take that opportunity to answer that, which is you can choose to buy more rings or more switch covers if you want. It just kind of depends on the size of your home and how many people live in it, etc. One of the big problem statements we were trying to solve, this came about in the first 9 months of interviews, was let's pretend for a second, everyone here has spent all the money and rewired their whole home. So everything I just said does not apply to anybody on this call. You all have the best smart homes on the planet, right? You've rewired your whole home, you put smart speakers in every room. Everything I just said does not apply. Now, if your, say, dad or granddad comes to visit, well, they can't use any of your smart home tech. For starters, they don't have access to your smartphone in order to be able to control those devices. And second, they don't know what you called different things when you set it up. So this is called kitchen light or living room light or light number 23. So we've intentionally made the rings so that any ring, there's no pairing. And so if they come to your home, they can use the rings. And if you go to their home, you can use your rings and vice versa. There's no pairing. So if a second person at home bought a second ring, they can automatically use everything. It's sort of like a telephone. The more people that have it, the more beneficial your own device gets. It's called network effects. And so we've intentionally made it so there's no pairing. Anyone can use it in any person's home. It doesn't penetrate walls, though, so you can't secretly control it from outside someone's home. You have to be invited in. But yes, there's no pairing, so everyone could use it everywhere else.
Okay, 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. When will it be ready for purchase?
It's a great question. One of the things we're trying to do, again, like I said, human-centered design. I want to do multiple iterations, just to make sure that it's functioning well for nothing for us without us, right? So we want to keep working with disability communities across and to get more and more diverse sets of data to make sure that, hey, this is working and it is genuinely helpful. So we're about 3 months from our first formal pilot. This is with the state of New York and Veterans Affairs, and 9 months from launch. So our target is for this device to be publicly available in September next year.
Perfect. And how do they learn more about you, your company, the ring?
Great question. So here, I have shared my information. Please reach out anytime. Honestly, if I'm being very, very honest, it actually feels really great hearing from people. Like I said, it's not, people here are getting sort of a very tiny paycheck, if anything. And so feedback from folks is what keeps us going. I'm being very honest. So yeah, feel free to reach out on my email. The other thing I would say is if you want updates on what's happening with prototypes, what stage we've reached, if you go to the website and scroll down all the way to the bottom, you can put in your email. And I sort of diligently, both me and our head of accessibility, Natalie, we send out updates every month. I send it out from my perspective, which is from a founder perspective. And then Natalie sends out other updates saying, hey, we're now giving pilots to this state. If you're here or you're visiting, and if you want one, you can have one for 30 days and give us feedback. And so if you want updates or if you know other people that it would be helpful to, yeah, just put in your email and you'll get updates on a regular basis. We're gonna hire Wayne at this point.
No, it's not a question. It's for anybody who's interested in assistive tech. So I've been around quite a while, and before my time, there was a laser keyboard that you could use. So you'd have a laser connected to a hat or a headband, and you'd point it at a keyboard, and there would be sensors in there. And we always thought, and we kind of pushed this to early days student competition, groups that maybe you could have kind of laid similar thing, but sensors kind of around the room to do certain things. So I love that you guys are doing this. I think it could make a big difference. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the kind words.
Okay, let's wrap it up there. Dhaval, thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun. And maybe after launch you can come back and give us a real-time demo again of some of the other exciting things you're working on.
Absolutely. Our head of accessibility, Natalie, who was supposed to be here, she has a family thing happening. She's actually based in Canada. And so I'm in here in California, but she's in Canada, and our biomedical engineer is also in Canada. And so, yes, I will be there even probably before the device is in market, pretty sure. And so I'll come with a bunch of devices. And so
Our little community would happily be one of your pilot projects to try them out.
hey, that would be wonderful. That would be the dream, actually. So yes, I will keep that in mind.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Terry with SCIBC, for co-hosting this event, and happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. This was wonderful. I actually had a blast.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everybody.
It's
Thanks a lot.
fabulous.